I don't care if you're looking at a Grant Cardone and Elon Musk, a Graham Stephan, or a Kevin O'Leary. They've all taken on substantial risks, but they understood the reward that came with that. And they took ownership of their situation, and they were willing to go that inch wide, a mile deep into their niche, and really, the saying, the riches are in the niches. We need to be willing to take on some real risk if we want substantial reward. YouTube, we need to talk about this bullshit that I see going on in regards to diversification. Now, this is going to be kind of a quick hot take on the subject matter. I'm hoping to really hit the broad strokes on this, but I really do think a lot of newer, really younger investors are misled when it comes to diversification. And what really inspired me to make this video was actually recently watching a video with Graham Stephan where he had Kevin O'Leary on his channel. And now you guys know I'm a huge fan and friend of Graham Stephan, so under no way should this be interpreted as me, throwing shade at him. But I did think that there was an important point that him and Kevin O'Leary discussed that I think missed the mark really when it comes to advice for a lot of Graham Stephan's fans and really young user base or viewer base. And that is diversification. So like Kevin O'Leary talked about, Graham's level of diversification and encouraged him to even diversify further. Well, I understand that perspective, and I'm not even saying it's the wrong advice. I think it needed a giant disclaimer because I assume that a lot of Graham's fans are naturally going to jump to the assumption that diversification is always a good idea. As well, it's important we understand diversification can mean a lot of different things to a lot of different people, so we need to dial in what we even mean by this word as well. So let's first talk about what diversification is, or what a lot of people mean by it when they say the word diversification when it comes to your investments or your entire net worth or your portfolio. The goal of diversification really is to mitigate or reduce volatility and risk when it comes to your investments. But one thing we need to understand is you can never mitigate or get rid of all risk. So there's going to be a certain level of systematic risk, whether you're thinking of like a financial hurricane, a black swan event, something crazy going on in the market, that's still going to impact you regardless of how diversified you are. So we need to understand that the goal of diversification is to reduce risk and volatility in our portfolio, but understand that you can never get that really down to truly zero. Common diversification mistakes. Number one. Now this is a really important one. People overcomplicate and really get convoluted when it comes to diversification. What we need to understand is that there's multiple studies out there, and I can link to them in the comments if you guys want, but once you get over 10 different entities or 10 different investments, you really start to get diminishing returns in regards to diversification. Once we get past 20, really, you're now really on the knife's edge in regards to the difference between, say, 20 and 30, or 30 and 40 different entities or stocks or funds that you're investing in. So if you are trying to diversify, if it does make sense for your situation, you probably only need to be somewhere in the 10 to 20 range. You don't need 100 different funds. All right, so a lot of conventional wisdom says diversify, 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 right? If you've ever talked to a bank employee, a mutual fund salesman, an insurance guy, they've probably always hit you up with the D word, diversification. But let's take a step back and think about, again, what is diversification? Right, it's mitigating risk and reducing volatility in your investments. But what we need to understand is that risk is really considered the yin to the yang of reward. So risk and reward, there's a correlation, a relationship there between the two. So the lower the risk, inherently your assumption needs to be the lower the reward. The higher the risk, the higher the reward. So when we put it into that context, who does diversification really make sense for? Well, it makes sense for people that don't want to risk shit. People that already have a lot of shit. So if you're really wealthy, if you've got enough money, if you've made your nut already, then yes, diversification makes total sense to me. And you 100% should try and diversify away all risk and volatility in your portfolio if you've got more than enough money and you're never going to want anything more and you don't need to grow your portfolio. However, if we're still in the accumulation phase, if we're still in the growth phase of our wealth journey, so if you're just getting started out, if you still want more, understand to really earn returns in your portfolio, you're going to have to accept a certain level of risk or volatility. The other aspect that I think is important to understand about diversification is it's really suited for individuals that want to be hands-off when it comes to their wealth creation or their wealth preservation. Now, let's take a step back and look at Kevin O'Leary or Graham Stephan or even myself. How did they originally get wealthy? Or really any wildly successful financial individual? It usually starts off by going an inch wide and a mile deep into a niche and really crushing it there, making making a very high return because they took on significant risk by going so deep into a niche. But because of that, they earned substantial returns. Again, risk and reward related here. But because they earned those substantial rewards, they then now have wealth. Once you've accumulated that wealth, once you're ultra wealthy, like a Kevin O'Leary, or once you've got a net worth of say 10 million plus, like my buddy Graham Stephan, then it can make sense to really want to diversify away risk. Because you're like, hey, I've got a lot of money. I don't even know if I need more money than this. I just want to make sure that I'm able to keep my money. Makes a lot of sense. But if you have zero money, if you've got $1,000, should you really be focused on diversifying away the risk, or focus on trying to make more and earn more and really put that money to work for you? Understand that anything that you put in as an investment into a low risk is going to come with low reward. If you think that you're getting into an investment that's low risk, high reward, understand that you're misinterpreting things. Something's wrong there. That doesn't exist in real life. So if you feel like you've got a guaranteed moonshot, I can guarantee you do not have a moonshot. All right, let's take diversification in a different direction or apply it under a different set of circumstances. Let's think about how you probably earn your primary source of income, your day job. Now, do you work for 1,000 different employers to diversify the risk? Or do you work for one employer? Right? Most people have one job, or they've got a couple jobs. They don't have a dozen jobs. They don't have 20 jobs. They don't have 100 bosses. There's a certain inefficiency that comes with that. As well, who gets paid more at the job, the specialist or the generalist? Now, the generalist inherently has a little bit less risk in a way because they can do a lot of different positions. They can jump around. Where the specialist, they're going that inch wide, mile deep into their niche, and that allows them to usually get paid substantially more than the generalist. And this applies to really any field: law, accounting, medicine. Again, the specialist gets paid a substantially greater amount than the generalist. And the same holds true when we're thinking about our investments or our portfolio. If we want to be safe, then yeah, let's generalize and diversify. But if we're in the growth accumulation phase, it may make sense to really double down and focus on our money and making sure that we're getting the returns we need to be on pace to what we want. Diversification mistake number 2, getting into illiquid or high cost funds and fees and things of that nature. So first, let's talk about the illiquid. If you can't easily liquidate it, if you can't dollar cost average, or you can't rebalance your portfolio, you're probably not truly taking advantage of everything diversification has to offer. Secondly, if there's a real cost or hindrance to liquidating your position, right? Again, it's not going to allow you to really get all the benefits from diversification. As well, oftentimes a lot of investors, when they're looking at diversifying, part of the reason that they are is because some bank salesman or some mutual fund salesman is trying to shove mutual funds down their throat. Now, there may be a time and a place for funds and maybe even mutual funds, but make sure that you're not getting into high fee funds. Don't MERS of more than 1%. Be extremely wary. And finally, on the subject matter of diversification, what I'd really like to hit home with you guys is understanding that it doesn't matter what we're talking about, but no one is ever going to care more than you about your shit. Whether that's your money, your health, your family, your relationships, we always need to take ownership over this. And so there's a real danger when people decide to just diversify, and now I don't have to make any decisions, or I don't have to critically think this, that, and the other. It's not true. And in addition to that, if you're still in that growth accumulation phase, if you're trying to grow your wealth, I think it's really important for you to take ownership. Had I decided to diversify away all the risk, I would have never made the millions of dollars I did in real estate, right? And this holds true for any entrepreneur, any individual that's been wildly financially successful. They committed, they went hardcore. I don't care if you're looking at a Grant Cardone, an Elon Musk, a Stephan, or a Kevin O'Leary. They've all taken on substantial risks, but they understood the reward that came with that. And they took ownership of their situation, and they were willing to go that inch wide, a mile deep into their niche, and really, the saying, the riches are in the niches. We need to be willing to take on some real risk if we want substantial reward. Diversification mistake number 3. Becoming complacent or lazy because you diversified. And now this is a real issue. A lot of people think that they can stop critically thinking about their portfolio or their financial needs or wants because they've diversified, so now they're covered on every situation and scenario. It's not the way diversification works. And we need to remember, no one is going to care more about your money than you. So even if you are diversified, even if you are maybe using an investment advisor, do not get complacent, do not get lazy, still take ownership of your money. All right, that's it for this video. I hope you guys enjoyed this discussion. Relatively kind of a fast hot take. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Jump in the comment section if you think I got something wrong about diversification, but you're really gonna have to make a pretty poignant argument because I'm kind of convinced myself on this subject matter. Again, not saying that diversification doesn't have a place. If you're older, if you can't afford to lose anything, if you've got everything you need already, diversify. Go ahead. I've got no issues with that. But if you're young, if you're looking to grow your wealth, you really should pause before jumping into diversifying. And again, smash that like button, hit the subscribe button if you're new to my channel, or if you're just one of the jerks that have been watching for a really long time and never subscribed, because I know more than 50% of people that watch my videos do not subscribe, and I take that as a personal insult.